today's podcast on the new TRAI regulations. We recently did a webinar on the new TRAI regulations about the new number series of 140 and 160, and we received overwhelming responses. Today's podcast is dedicated to the 140 and the 160 calling numbers, where we are going to dive even deeper and understand what do they mean for compliance, industry, brands, and others. Please join me in welcoming the subject matter expert Vivek Chitana, who heads the new initiatives at Exeter. Vivek, welcome to the podcast. So glad you could join us.
Hey, Shambhavi, thank you so much for having me on this call, and I really appreciate the efforts here. Thank you.
Let's start, Vivek. Now TRAI has focused on the uses of 140 and the 160 calling numbers. Which all industries are under this effect? What do you think?
Okay, so UCC, as you know, is unsolicited communication, and this has been a regulation which has been there in the force for quite some time now. It was always aimed at reducing the spam, reducing the fraud. Only new things which have been introduced now is the PETM binding. Uh, so, as I said, I think the regulator's interest is to protect the consumer from fraud. And the new part or to the earlier UCC guideline is PETM binding and all that. Otherwise, I think, as we all know, 140 was supposed to be a regulation launched a long time back for all industries for promotional calling. 160, on the other hand, is for BFSI and
Got
it yet to be launched.
Vivek, what is your opinion on the will this new implementation reduce the spam?
The new implementation will create PETM binding and traceability. Correct? Now
Yeah.
let's look at spam from the perspective of the consumer.
Mhm.
Uh, the consumer has been receiving a lot of spam calls, but as you all know, most of the spam calls come from SIM cards.
Yeah.
The current guideline is kind of oriented towards controlling and managing and tracing the SIP and PRI calls,
Mhm.
and not so much about um, the agencies or the people who use GSM gateways or use retail SIM cards and all that. So
Yeah.
to that extent, I think the regulator will definitely do more work towards handling misuse of retail SIMs and enterprise SIM cards for promotional calling.
Mhm.
So as I see it right now, I think we are taking one step at a time, and then we are going to make things more stringent for the non-compliance.
Yeah.
So in some sense, what I'm also seeing is the immediate impact and the immediate putting up of this 140 and all that may not reduce the spam completely. But yeah, it is going to definitely help us fight the fraud and all that.
Moving to the next question, Vivek. What if the customer mark our calling number as a spam, even if we have 140 calling number series? What needs to be done for our businesses and to safeguard their interest?
So this is an interesting question, right? Now,
Mhm.
if you are using 140 number, it already gets screened with the DND preference because the call will not go if the DND is blocked. There cannot be a valid complaint. In that sense, if you adopt 140, there cannot be a DND complaint. So you are
Mhm.
fully protected, right? So in some sense, if you're doing promotional activity and if you can adopt 140, I think you're fully protected from a regulatory perspective.
Vivek, can you explain what is DLT registration is and why it is needed for SMS and calls?
Okay, great question, right? I mean, even before I get there, let me try to explain what was happening in the erstwhile UCC guideline of SMS as well as voice.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people impersonating others. For example, somebody would call and say he's calling from a normal number, but he says, I am calling you from so and so bank. You don't have a mechanism to check. Similarly, there were fraud SMSs, which are like companies, which are fraud companies who would somehow get access to proper templates, use those to send their fraudulent links to general public, that is consumers. And by chance, if the consumer clicks that, they end up getting, uh, financially losing some money and all that, leading into financial frauds. Now, this was all happening because one, the control was missing. Second, the traceability was missing, right? So, in some sense, with the DLT and the PETM binding and all that, I think we have corrected that process. In SMS, there is a whitelisting of the URLs and APKs and all that, links and all that, which has been introduced, thereby protecting the consumer interest. Now, coming to your second question about DLT registration. Now you have three types of registration. One is the PE registration, which the end consumer or the customer who's going to call is going to get registered himself as prime principal entity. Then there is a telemarketer registration, which is for the agencies or the companies which serve these PEs. The consumer is also part of the DLT, where consumer, as soon as he buys a SIM card, he can go and select what is his preference. Now these are three things. Along with this, the content template, right? Whether it is SMS content or voice content, you have to register the content template and bind the PE to the TM so that the entire traceability is available. So at some point of time, if there is a call, you can get into it and say, okay, this is the PE who made the call. This is the TM who facilitated the call. The call came through this TSP. The content which was registered was, let's say, for example, collections call. The content was shown as, okay, we are going to talk in this guideline. All that can be verified. I think that is what is the new thing, as well as about DLT registration.
Now, when it comes to the international calls, will business need to use the 140 or 160 series? Or if not, then any idea when this will come in the effect?
Right now, 140, at least there is no need to use it if it is international calls. I think we need to understand the whole perspective of this 140, 160 is coming from spam and fraud in India, right? There are other regulations for international calling. One thing. Second thing, there is no mandate as such that if you're making a call to, let's say, US subscriber, you have to use 140 in India, because the regulations there will apply there, right? So, uh, so it's limited to India, I would say. And 160 is still not completely rolled out. So it's very difficult to say right now if the banks and the regulator wants to use 160 for international calling, or they want to use SDCA number. Right now, it's not very clear.
Thank you, Vivek, for sharing the wonderful insights with us. Moving on the customer consent. Now we know that there is a digital consent process in place, and we know that it's pretty expensive. So how does the process actually look like, and what about businesses which are not looking to opt for digital consent, but still want to call customers via one but still want to call customers via 140 and 160 number series?
Okay, digital consent is a process where the P takes consent of the end consumer. How that works is the P will initiate a request saying that I want to call the consumer, and the consumer will approve it, which then will override any of the DND preferences. So what I'm saying is, let's say if I as a customer, I have blocked all promotional calls. However, a particular bank reached out to me saying that I want to reach you and I have approved it. So in spite of my DND preference being completely blocked, I would still receive the call from that particular principal entity, PE. That is the process wherein PE will originate a request and I'll approve it. That's the whole process, which is also on DLT. The consent is also recorded on the DLT. As far as it being right now very expensive, I think the volumes are currently low. So if the volumes pick up, I'm sure the rates will also normalize, right? So that is the second part of your question. Now coming to the third part of your question, will the customers be allowed to reach out to clients even without digital consent using 140 number? No. If you use 140 number, then either the customer does not have preference set or has given consent. Only then the call will go. 160 on the other hand is for service calls. So we'll have to wait for the final guidelines and regulations, but it is mostly going to allow without the DND scrub because it is considered as service call, right?
Yeah,
So we'll have to wait for 160 though.
got it. What is your opinion on the collection calls or debt collection calls, basically?
This is a common question which I receive from most of our customers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let me tell you, I don't disagree with our customers because they have a valid question here. So the debt collection agencies and the customers ask us one question that we have given a certain debt and we are trying to collect.
Yeah.
We have legal rights.
Mm-hmm.
Is it needed for us to switch over to 140? Because
Mm-hmm.
140 will block the calls if the DND preference is not there.
Yeah.
Plus, if they try to take a digital consent, the customer may not give. In case if the customer gives also, the digital consent is valid for only 12 months. It doesn't serve the whole purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we handle this? On the other hand, under the pretext of service calling, I think we all know that there's been a lot of financial frauds and spam. So the regulator is very particular about not having any DND complaints.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a very interesting question with regulator having a perspective in the interest of the consumer, the customer having a perspective in the interest of the business, and of the overall growth of the nation. What we have done for that is we have requested try to consider collection itself as a separate category if possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we would request all our customers who are primarily into collections to definitely share their views to the regulator. And let's understand one thing that the regulator is trying to fight a larger battle of spam and financial frauds. They are not trying to say don't call people. They're trying to say that we want to protect our consumers. So I think we should all respond. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
We have a consultation paper on 9th, which we have represented the exact same view, which I talked about it now. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to wait for the final guidelines from regulator.
Got it. Got it. And what do you think for the business managing multiple departments, how they can efficiently handle everything with just one 160 number series?
So again, here again, we see that the customers have difference in the opinion. There are some customers who want one single number, and there are other customers who believe that a single number will not help. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is also coming from the tendency to think that the normal numbers were getting swapped to avoid people getting to block numbers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to wait and watch, but there will be a reasonable number of 160 numbers provided
Mm-hmm.
for different purposes, different departments, considering branches, considering use case, considering redundancy requirement, etc. But it's too soon to give any view or definitive statements. We'll have to wait for the regulator to come out with the 160 guidelines.
Got it. Got it. And Vivek, will there be any drop in the call pickup rates? If yes, how can we overcome that?
We suspect that use of 160 will surely have lower pickup rates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we also suspect that maybe it will normalize over a period of time.
Yeah.
Uh, that is because of consumer behavior. Let's say even if the consumer behavior does not uh, increase the pickup rate, we are also trying to see if um, engaging with some OTT voice channels, branded calling options, or options of notification and video calling messages, let's say, for example, Truecaller, all that can increase the pickup rate or the communication of the information, one of the two, right? If it is
Yeah.
video calling, if it is call reasoning, it can communicate the information. It may not be the improvement of pickup rate, but uh, branded calling, app to app calling, OTT voice calling may increase the pickup rate. That is what we are trying to attempt.
Mhm.
Luckily, right now, because the whole adoption of 140 for different use cases is at a very low,
Yeah.
we still don't have a magic pill. I mean,
Mhm.
today, if you ask us, give me statistics of using ABCD solution and what is the improvement on the pickup rate, I think we are not there right now. We
Yeah.
will be there. Our
Mhm.
customers are trying out different methods to achieve the objective of improving the pickup rate.
Mhm.
But right now, as I speak, we are trying a lot of things, but there is no established data point for it.
Lastly, can missed call callbacks still be handled with 080 number, or do businesses need to use the 140 series for those now?
No, if it's a call back, if it is an inbound call, right, you can always use the normal number because it is understood that only if the consumer is interested, he will call back.
Mhm.
So it is definitely allowed to use normal numbers, 1800 numbers for inbound call contact center use cases.
Got it, Vivek. This has been super informative podcast. Before we wrap up, what should businesses do to stay ahead of the new regulations?
Okay, as I said, there's no magic pill with us right now. However, I can give you couple of views. One, try and use services from any licensed holder. The license may be ULVNO, audio text, unified license, any license holder. Do not engage with unregistered telemarketers and non-license holders as far as possible.
Mhm.
Do not try to circumvent the regulation by use of GSM gateways, SIM cards. In fact, it will be tougher, in my opinion, to convince the regulator that we were using an alternate method not approved. Rather, it would be a great idea to use either 140 or the normal number series and stand up in front of the regulator and say, hey, listen, this is not working for me. Can you help me here?
Yeah.
We are trying to circumvent something, I think, that goes against the principles of being able to fairly regulate ourselves and still be needfully demanding from the regulator, right?
Yeah. Right.
Um, I can also give you one golden rule. If you are not receiving DND complaints,
Mhm.
whatever is your setup, retain it as it is because it's working fine for you.
Mhm.
But if you're getting DND complaints, switch over to 140 and then try and see different methods which we just talked in our earlier statements as to how to improve the pickup rate or what are the alternates available and stuff like that. Those are a couple of things which I can share right now.
Mhm.
Apart from that, those people who are interested and they have specific question, I would request them to write either to the consultation paper or definitely reach out to us and share us some more information, your concerns, so that we represent you uh, from our side to the regulator.
Thank you so much, Vivek, for joining us today, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay compliant and stay informed. Catch you next time.
Thank you, Shambhavi. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Vivek.